doing well. I want to do the weekly update on my investing portfolio. So far this week, the most notable thing is on my bring it up for you. On my ETFs, Defending America is now the top earner for me right now. It's sitting at 14%, and um, going into the ETF, as always, we have the individual stocks: Boeing, United, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, so on and so forth. But the big news with that, of course, is the North Korean missile test. I believe their second ICBM, which is the intercontinental ballistic missile, and it's causing more and more tension, obviously. But more importantly, we're now flying bombers over South Korea as America's basically show of force. So North Korea's show of force is, continue to fire the missiles, and we respond with that show of force with our own show of force, which is flying bombers over. So it's just escalating, 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 and then of course it causes defense stocks to rise. Now, with that, of course, we also see here where it's nicely highlighted, just the continuation of the Middle East and the going back and forth, whether if it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, whatever. We're in all that shit, and we continue to sell weapons, millions and billions worth of deals, airplanes, munitions, tanks, whatever, to basically continue these individual wars are going on. But America's main concern, and I wouldn't really say main concern, but North Korea is the one that's directly targeting us, basically, in a sense. So they're directly calling us out, where in the past it was the 9/11, the whole weapons of mass destruction, all the individual stuff that we kind of got baited into going war with. So now we're potentially going to go war with another country. But the interesting part I think about that is China's role in it, because they continue to say, or our rhetoric, or I should say, not mine, but America's rhetoric on it is to let China handle it, but China doesn't want to handle it, because if they take out the North Korean power regime, whatever, that's just going to put U.S. troops right at China's border. So obviously China doesn't want that, and they don't want to work with North Korea, but they recognize that it keeps America out of China in a sense. And China fuels 90% of North Korean trade, so it's a big deal. But every time they fire off one of those missiles, every time China says it's not going to do anything, every time the U.S. military flies over a bomber, just defending America, all those defense stocks keep just going up and up and up, and they just won't stop. So, and the media also loves covering defense stocks as well and everything. So it's just fueling the fire. But for the first time, though, I've never seen my Defending America at 14%. It's pretty high. The highest I think it's gone is 11%, really, maybe 11, 12%. And now it's surpassed the Internet Titans. And speaking of which, the tech stocks, a lot of it was already overbought, so they're basically coming off their highs. They're coming down lower. If anyone would be interested in getting them in the near future, I think it's getting closer and closer to that point. It's just part of the cycle, going up, going down. But right now it's kind of on the down slope. So it was at a high of 15%, and then now it's down to about 12.5%. So it's not really any major news with that, but it's just coming out of that cycle. And then Live Long and Prosper, my health stocks. A lot of that was due to, or the hype of it was due to the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and the GOP wanting to implement their skinny repeal, which would take away some of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act, and that didn't happen, which was crazy. On Friday, it got voted down. And it was all because of the GOP. The Republican Party couldn't pass it. The Democrats didn't. No one voted for it, so they're not even concerned or whatever. But the Republican had the majority, but 3 senators didn't vote for it, and so it just barely missed it. If only 2 senators would have not voted, it would have been a tie, which means uh the vice president would come in. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. The vice president would come in and be the tiebreaker vote, and obviously he would vote in favor of doing the skinny repeal, so that the Republicans would have got what they wanted. But surprisingly, it didn't happen. So it was pretty crazy. But as a result, now my live long and prosper is kind of going down a little bit. It wasn't a little lower double digits, like around 11 and 12, kind of while it was all going on, and then after that, slowly going down. Now, keep in mind that during Obama's pretty much entire administration, the Republicans tried to repeal it like 50 times, so they're not going to give up on it. It's just for right now. It sounds like they want to move on to the next thing, which is budgeting, which I'm looking forward to because that's going to affect bank stocks. So bank stocks, highest they've ever been for me, like a little over 6.5%. Again, this is one of the ETFs in the beginning. It wasn't doing so well. I think it was around 2 or 3%, nothing that major. But now more and more as it comes to them working on drafting legislation to affect tax brackets, businesses, small businesses, everything. That's going to affect these and how banks loan and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to see that one. Haven't heard too much on it yet. I think everyone's still recovering from the wounds of the failed healthcare bill. And then raw earth continuing to move up little by little, now over 3%. Again, last week, America or United States and Saudi Arabia were capping their production, which like I was saying, the whole supply and demand issue. There's like an oversupply, so there isn't much demand, so the price is going down. Now they're capping the supply, so the supply is going down and the demand's going up, and so the price is going up. So the price of oil is going up. So now my raw earth stocks are going up, but it's still slow and steady. I'm sure as a few more weeks go by, we'll continue to see this one go up. And then wireless wonders. Still waiting to see what happens with the Federal Communications Commission. Ajit Pai, he stays out of the news pretty well. He does some interviews here and there, but he's basically saying consistent that he doesn't care if companies can throttle service. He doesn't care if Netflix can not Netflix, Verizon can slow down Netflix's speed, even though it was just shown that recently. I wonder if I can find that article, because that was a perfect point. Let me see. Netflix. See if this pops up anything. Yeah, there you go. Verizon accused of throttling Netflix. So this was interesting. And basically what I was talking about, where they would purposely slow down the internet speeds for these certain websites, but Verizon spun it as they were testing their network's video service. So in turn, Netflix suffered for it. But that's exactly the problem. Is it's now because Verizon offers some type of video service. They want people to have Netflix service be slow, and it's actually funny looking at this video just buffering. Just basically spells it out perfectly. But they want it to be slower because they want to drive business away from parts of Verizon's business that they could capitalize on. So Verizon Wireless customers this week noticed that Netflix's speed test tool appears to be capped at 10 megabits, raising fears that the carrier is throttling video streaming on its mobile network. And then I'm sure there's much more in here, but like I said, the Verizon did come out and make a statement, but they were basically saying because they were testing their network and doing stuff is the reason why. And you can make whatever argument you want, but this is exactly what people are afraid of when they're talking about taking apart net neutrality or repealing it. So, like I said though, I'm against that, but at the same time, I'm going to invest in the companies that are going to capitalize from it. because in my wireless wonders, the two biggest companies in here, over 20% are Verizon and AT&T, which in the United States are two of the biggest providers of internet service or data service, like Wi-Fi and all that. So not only do they have control over mobile networks, phones and stuff, they have your Wi-Fi at your house, your internet at your home, and now we're potentially going to give them control over the websites you browse, and it could be whatever website, but the point is, unless you're one of those companies that runs a website and you pay up big money, you could potentially have slower service. And especially if you're a company that competes with something that Verizon or AT&T offers, like video streaming service, you're definitely going to see a slower speed in the service because Verizon or AT&T might slow it down. So it's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, that one I think is still put on the back burner. The next thing that we're going to be seeing for sure pretty soon is the tax cuts and the budget deal and everything like that. That's going to be coming up, and that's going to be definitely interesting to see for my bank stocks, my money machine. So I'm looking forward to that one. But other than that, like I said, the main thing was really just North Korea continuing to be provocative, as the news is saying, and doing their missile tests, and that's causing defense stocks to go up pretty significantly. But I think next few weeks we'll see that change to the bank stocks, because North Korea is not going to stop testing missiles anytime soon. The Korean War hasn't ever stopped. I don't know if people realize that. It's been going on ever since technically we left Korea. Well, we didn't, obviously, but when we left, when the war had stopped, the war between North and South hasn't stopped. They still have their border. They still have their guards posted up. I think the South Korean president, I know his last name is like Moon. I forget his first name, but I think he's trying to go towards more unification, which again could be good or bad. Bad for China if it allows North Korea and South Korea to come together and push American troops up against China's border, because that's a trade war. Or we're in a trade war, or we're trying to have a trade war with that country, so that's a whole nother thing. But could be bad if there's a bad influx of North Korean citizens that could flee into China or flee into South Korea. And there are defectors, but this is like on a massive scale. If there's some type of deal between North and South, but I don't know. But that's defense stocks are just going to continue to go up. Every time a missile shot up, every time there's like false flag type attacks in like the Middle East, where the United States is saying one thing, but outlets in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, are saying another thing, and there's that conflict. We sell weapons. We're continuing on the civil war, the wars between each individual countries, ISIS, and all that stuff. We're throwing around weapons left and right. That's our business. So that's going to keep continuing to benefit. But other than that, that's kind of really what's been going on this week. As far as day trading, I haven't done a whole lot this week. It's been kind of slow for me, so I apologize I haven't put much day trading videos, but I'm continuing to do it. But with that, though, that's all I really have for now. So if there's any questions, as always, feel free to ask. And always, help me out, like and subscribe to the channel. I'll keep it going. Share these videos if you think they can help people. And with that, I'll talk to you all in the next video, so enjoy yourselves.